Actually, I used to be a very good limbo dancer. I came second in a bar in Brisbane. Rosanna, I do have your address on an old Amazon account. Well, this was the nearest close to me. What are we doing? Oh. Well, working title. There are many working titles, but the first one was A Woman of Substance by Helen Oakes. A saga. In-laws and outlaws. In my family, your granny, my godmum, my godmother, Elizabeth, Beth, Auntie Beth, Oakes, Nee. Outlaws, Mum, outlaw, Auntie Anne, Oakes, outlaw, and they're all wonderful, and the most wonderful, the two Auntie Annes. Uncle Arthur died before I was born, is my belief. So, your granny, Beth, is a woman of substance. The story, their story, the Aide Oak story, is fascinating. My father has a eidetic memory. He doesn't forget anything. Therefore, you can get him to tell you stories. Everyone, you know, I think about this a lot recently. A friend's wife is sick, and I wanted to say, depending on how sick she is, but just video conversations of all the generations and get your children to tell stories, because you'll get all the different stories of childhood, but only the good ones. Because every family has he did, she did stories. Believer. Beth and Believer. Don't sanitize the story. This is a story of a woman of substance. The women of Airdrie in South Lanarkshire and all those who married Oakeses are women of substance. All women, all people are people of substance. But I must say, predominantly and primarily and initially, I prefer stories of women. There's a big debate, isn't there, about whether you're working class. I've got a job, so I'm working class. In Airdrie, South Lanarkshire, steel foundry was between Coatbridge and Uncle James Riley and Mum's sister Mary, elder sister Mary, lived. Bells Hill. Purportedly a rough place. I was talking to a lady, some lady at a legal firm, I think, or it might have been a mental health charity, I can't actually remember. We were having a wonderful conversation, and I said my mother's from Coatbridge, my dad's from Airdrie, and I said the four Oakes boys are Catholics, and she went, oh my God. And that's the joy of speaking to Scottish people of a certain age. She wasn't young, but she wasn't old. Old doesn't exist, does it? Anyway, you think you're old, think how long the pebble's been there, or a rock. And so the story really goes back and forth in time, doesn't it? And I was with your uncles and your father when they played bagpipes at a woodland walking spot where your father and your mother used to go for walks. Because it's the Shires. You go by the turn-off on the motorway from, say, Falkirk to Glasgow. I see it. Airdrie. Looks very green. So, if you know what an orange lodge is, there's 24 of them in Airdrie. And it's not a very big place, Airdrie, actually. It's quite, so anyway, this lady on the phone was like, oh my God. And that was all we needed to say about that. Well, you did an exam in the Catholic school system. You took an exam at 11, like the grammar school system, 11 plus in England. But in Scotland, the education system is superior. It just is. You then went to, say, one of 6 schools, and each school had a boys' school and a girls' school. So Mum went to number 1, which was St Pat's High School for girls. And I think my father, either the bottom one or the second bottom one, I'm not sure. My father said he just was interested in kicking a ball well. So, my granddad, your great-granddad, John Oakes, he fascinating stories about that gentleman. And he worked in the steelworks, but we ended up in coal mining area. So everywhere you walk in Scawthorpe, through Castle Hills to Woodlands, up through the park to by the lake, Highfields Lake as we called it. It's called Bradley Lake now. They throw fish in it, and you walk through the park club, and then you go to what's in about 1911. Sorry, I studied this when I was 13 or 14. Something called the Little Village. But anyway, you keep walking and you end up at Brodsworth Pit, the King's Pit, because that's where Buckingham Palace and the Royal Palace has got their coal. But then you have to go back to Ireland, and I'm afraid the famine. Why did the Catholic Irish go to terrible conditions in South Lanarkshire for the pits, the steel works? I think it probably took a few generations before they would let them near the ships, unless they were navvies or descended from navvies. Anyway, there's a really good song by an excellent band called the Battlefield Band. Apparently they've had many generations and eras. Jim McGillivray speaks of the lead piper in this region and says he was in the Battlefield Band when they were the Battlefield Band. Your Auntie Beth runs the place. Not just your house. I think she ran Scawthorpe. Does Maggie still work at the hairdressers? Does she still have the hairdressers at the precinct? The newsagents next door but one, I used to get 10 pence mix-ups. And there was a barber's, presumably between next door to the newsagents was a really great sweet shop. And at the end, I think, was the ladies' hairdressers. Actually, when I was young, I think it was on the other side of the thing. You know what I'm talking about. But there was a barber's anyway on the newsagent side, because your granddad used to take me there to get my hair cut. Quite frequently, actually. I remember my mum was in hospital in 1983 when I was 11. My first year at school, I would go to your granny and granddad's straight from school. definitely I had. He took me to the hairdressers whenever he got the opportunity. He was one of the few people. He's probably the only person that could cut my hair and not be in trouble. From Mum. Mum would say no one's allowed to cut the hair. Beards come and go. She didn't even notice if I'd had it shaved. If she'd seen me the day before, big beard, next day completely clean shaven with a hat covering my hair. She didn't even notice. She didn't see the beard. All her brothers have beards. No, not my granddad. None of the Oakses have beards. They're quite anti-beards. What am I doing? Did I sing? I didn't sing, did I? I'm not going to bed. I'm making a flask of squash, a flask of coffee, and having some supper.